Weekly vlog number 45. Starting off here real quick, the footage you are seeing is sped up by about 12 times, and it is actually the hardware swap I did on my computer, because yes, I did get the CPU ordered and delivered and everything, and I actually mentioned that last Saturday, so I said after that video I was gonna swap hardware out. So I did swap hardware out right after that video, and yeah, I did actually spill water twice on that when I was actually taking hardware out. So once I spilled on my desk because I forgot there was water in the tube and that end wasn't actually closed off so it could spill out. And the other time, I actually spilled a little bit on the motherboard, so I soaked that up a bit. I didn't really care a whole lot because that was the motherboard I was taking out, and the motherboard and the stuff I put in was all fine. It wasn't wet. It was just the motherboard I took out that got a little wet. And I did mention on Twitter and Facebook that I do have good news and I have bad news. And actually, I'm gonna start with the bad news after I mention something else, because holy shit, it is hard to breathe right now. And that is, it's completely unrelated to the good news or bad news that I just kind of said, but the other random shit that's making it hard to breathe is don't use too much like little smelling things or scented things when you wash your clothes, because I accidentally poured way too much of that in the damn washer. I was like, fuck, I can't get that out now. I just gotta leave it. Hopefully it's not gonna be too bad, but it is basically suffocating because it's so strong and it's on my shirt. God damn it. I wouldn't have to use that if my clothes weren't so old, but I swear I've had most of my clothes for 7 to 9 years. Between 7 and 9 years, I've had most of my clothes. So they start to smell old if I don't use something to actually remove that bad old smell. Kind of like the smell of rotting stuff, almost. Rotting plant, sort of. It's kind of hard to describe. It's not like rotting flesh or dead fish or something. It's more, this is used, it's old, it's got smell just stuck in it, doesn't go away. It's kind of like if you wash your clothes and you forget to put them in the dryer for a while, and it's a hot day and it just stays there and it's just all damp and wet inside your washer, and then you have to actually run it through again to actually wash it so it doesn't stink when you dry it out. That's kind of like that smell, but it's permanent. And it's only permanent if I don't use smelling stuff to actually make it smell better. But I used way too goddamn much this time. So anyways, as for the bad news is actually related to the good news, and you can see, yes, I am swapping hardware out. I'll mention that again. So right now, because I did this on Saturday last week, this is Saturday this week, so it's been a week since I swapped stuff out. That means my computer is up and running. Everything is running. I got this video edited on the computer. So the bad news here, start with it really quick. I had to remove one of the graphics cards. You're going to see at the end of the video, I'll show what the computer looks like inside the case with both graphics cards. Then I end up removing one off camera and adjusting the tubing length to actually still work with the same layout that I have with the tubing. The tubing is going to be a lot neater than it looks like at the start of this video. I got it all tucked away and pretty much hidden when it goes up to return to radiators and the pump and reservoir. But I did have to remove one graphics card because the first game I tested had a driver crash. So the first game I tested was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, and after under 15 minutes of playing that, which is normal, it's the same amount of time it always ended up crashing in. Only time it didn't end up crashing the drivers was when I underclocked stuff, but that left the system unstable, as I mentioned before, which is part of the reason why I stopped recording Skyrim until I got this dealt with. So after under 15 minutes of playing that game, I got a graphics driver crash, which kind of pissed me off. So I just went to bed for that night because I was already tired, it was close to bed, and I just wanted to play a little bit of a game for a little while, just to run a very quick test. And when I got up the next day, I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to try something. It's probably not going to work, but I want to try it anyways, just to see if I get lucky. So what I did is I went into the graphics driver, and in the graphics driver, I disabled SLI and I put everything onto my secondary card. And I have done that before I made my graphics cards, and I was still getting graphics driver crashes when I did that the last time I tried, so whatever. And then I shut down the computer after I disabled my primary card, basically threw everything on secondary. I removed the SLI bridge, then I've hooked the HDMI cable into the secondary card instead of the primary, so the primary was completely unused. It was not being used at all, and the primary was actually the Hydro Copper 980. And of course, the light flickering I noticed before, this is also another reason why I decided to try this. The light flickering and eventual light just failing on the Hydro Copper 980, it's got a white LED on it. So that was actually starting to flicker back when I was running MemTest 86, and eventually it just went out and it stopped turning on. So because of that, I was just deciding, you know what, I'm just going to try and do something else here because it's possible that maybe this graphics card really is faulty because this is just becoming a shit show here and I need to figure out what the hell's going on. So once I got my system up and running again, I was only using my secondary card. SLI bridge removed, just everything. Obviously, there's still power running to the primary card, my Hydro Copper 980, I mean, but it wasn't being used for anything. I even put all PhysX processes onto secondary card. I then ran another test on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. This time, however, I managed to run it for 2 hours, 40 minutes before I just got bored and I just didn't want to play that game anymore. But I had no driver problems. I had no crashes, no nothing. It was perfect. So that was kind of amazing. I thought, okay, it's possible it's a fluke. Let's run a huge test, one that has never been done. And even when I was underclocking stuff, would not have been possible to have been done because after about 4.5 hours when I was underclocking stuff, my system would start to lag and freeze and stutter and just basically just not work right. So I ran a 5-hour, 10-minute test of Borderlands 2. Not even fucking kidding. A single sitting, 5 hours, 10 minutes. That is a long fucking test. That is the longest time I have played that game in a single setting, probably ever, but at least since before my last computer died. And after that 5 hours and 10 minutes, I had no problems at all. There was no driver crash, the game didn't crash, nothing bad happened. And actually, the game ran perfectly. It was the smoothest I have ever seen it. The only time it would seem to stutter a bit was when PhysX crap was going on. Just lots of PhysX particles, but that's kind of understandable. PhysX is kind of a bitch to process. So frame latency just drops a bit. And you can see some stutter. It just looks like it's a frame rate of about 50 frames a second instead of smooth 60 since I have a 60 hertz monitor. And even though, the frame rate was actually well above 60, it was actually up in the 100s most of the time. And even a lot of the time, it would still be between 70 and 90 when PhysX stuff was going on. So even when PhysX was going on, it was actually behaving properly. And even with that stutter, it was just well within the tolerable range. It was just running great. I was actually kind of amazed, and I was not expecting to be able to run it that long, but I had no problem, so I was like, okay, this is amazing. I gotta make an update here. And I actually started writing all these times down too. So anyways, after that, I then decided, you know what, let's test a different game. One, I'm not sure if it actually crashed or not, but I'll try it anyways because it's possible it did, but maybe not. So the next game I tested was Oblivion, and I played Oblivion for 3 hours. Of course, Oblivion, there were no driver problems at all, no crashes. Of course, I don't remember how many days of testing this stuff all went through. It's basically been the entire week I was getting updates on the computer from Windows, update drivers, and just fucking everything. It took 2 or 3 days to get all the updates before I did any testing. So I think by Monday or Tuesday, I started testing games. And since then, up until just last night, well, I guess yesterday morning for me, it's 1:52 in the morning right now. So I guess in the morning, because I went to bed in the morning. So whatever, I'll just call it last night. So up until last night, I was testing games, and it's just been a lot of testing, a lot of gaming. And I swear my stress has been slowly just slipping away because I am 100% certain. This is going on to the good news stuff. It has been kind of, it left the bad news quite a ways back, obviously, but is onto the good news here. It's just been perfect. I'm 100% certain that my computer problems are solved because after Oblivion ran fine for 3 hours, I then tested Borderlands 2 for 3 hours again. Then I tested Portal 2 for 3 hours because why the fuck not? I don't remember if it ever crashed the driver or not, but it possibly did at one point. I then remember for sure that Left 4 Dead 2 did crash the graphics driver, and I'm pretty sure that was something under 30 minutes before it crashed the graphics driver. It was probably faster than that too, but I don't remember for sure. But I did test that game for 3 hours, which is awesome. It too, just like Portal 2, Borderlands 2, Oblivion, just Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, all the games I tested up to that point, it had no problems at all. I then tested Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. This game never actually had any problems on my system, even when I was using the fucked up Hydro Copper 980 that was causing the problems. I never had any problems with it crashing graphics drivers or crashing or just anything going wrong. I played it for 2 hours, 30 minutes, and it ran perfectly great. It just, no problems at all. I wasn't really expecting a problem on it, but whatever, I still tested it, it was cool. Next game was Rise of the Triad, the remake from 2013, a game I suggest you actually try. It's an awesome game. I had a game crash at first, but I also had a game crash before. I only tested it once before too, so I didn't actually bother looking at it like, oh, why is it actually crashing? No, I don't want to fucking deal with this, is basically my attitude, is why is it crashing? I don't want to deal with this right now. Fuck it, I'm not testing this again. This time, I was like, you know what? I want to figure out why this is crashing, because everything else is working perfectly. So I went in, I didn't bother looking, well, I tried looking stuff up, but I couldn't really find any answers. Apparently it's just a really buggy ass game. It's still a great game. I suggest you try it, but take caution before because it's apparently really buggy and it has problems. And some reason when I was on my last computer with two 5870s in Crossfire, I couldn't really run it worth shit, even on the lowest settings, and I don't know why, it was just odd. So anyways, I ran that for 1 hour, 18 minutes after I found that, hey, the game's actually crashing because of its implementation of PhysX, which is a little odd. So I figured that out by just quickly saying, you know what, maybe PhysX is doing something to this game because I've had it off before and it ran fine. I never really ran it with PhysX on before, so I turned off PhysX and I tried and it ran fine. No problems at all. I then decided, you know what, I think I'm pretty much done testing, let's just go and fuck around and play some other games. So I played Oblivion for 1 hour, 1 minute. I know that's a weird time, and actually that was probably, because I put that, I forgot to mark that down, but that was probably before I tried Rise of the Triad, the 1 hour, 1 minute Oblivion session. But right after Rise of the Triad is actually where I did the 3 hours, 43 minutes of Oblivion, the longest time I actually played Oblivion since then. The regular 3 hours of Oblivion, the only problem I had was the usual crap where, oh, the game's starting to run low on its memory usage because it's running into its common caching problem where it doesn't free up usable memory that it can actually use in order to stay at a decent, steady frame rate. So the frame rate would drop down to 50 to 60 instead of being up at over 200 or over 300 or 400. And that was just weird. But that's not a huge issue. That's not hardware related. That's not something wrong with my computer. That is actually something that game just has an issue with. You will see it a lot faster than 3 hours if you're traveling around, you're going in dungeons a lot, and you're traveling the world of that game a lot. And you may even see it as soon as an hour into your gameplay. It kind of just depends on what you're doing, though. It's also possible that it'll take you 5 or 6 hours before you run into that problem. It just depends on what you're doing in the game. If you're staying in one general location, like you're staying in a city and you're just looking around, then it's probably not going to happen to you. But if you're running around the world, you're loading a lot of cities, you're doing a lot of quests, it's going to happen. You can pretty much guarantee it. It's just a problem with the game, and I know that for sure because I vaguely, very, very vaguely remember looking up information on this back when I had it on my computer before my last computer. So the computer I had when I was in high school, back when the game actually released. The computer that I learned a lot of the stuff I know about computers on, and actually the one that I started with, and it was some pre-built thing. And that's the first one that I ever actually truly looked at and said, you know what, I'm gonna take a look at this system, see what hardware I can replace, and I did a research everything to kind of teach myself how to replace hardware and swap stuff out properly and get everything running and working right. And even back then on that system, it was just doing that same exact damn thing. My last computer, it did the same thing, and this computer, it's just a problem with the game itself, basically. And the final game I tested, which I never actually tested before my Hydrocopper 980 was removed, or before I swapped out hardware. I didn't actually have it at the time because this is one of the games that I picked up on sale during Steam's last sale stuff that I mentioned. I think I mentioned that either last week or the week before I picked up some games after I ordered the CPU. So it was probably a couple weeks ago that I mentioned it. But the last game that I tested I played it last night. It was just the first Darksiders. Not Darksiders 2. I haven't tested Darksiders 2 yet. I'm sure it's going to run smoother though. It was always stuttery when I played it before swapping hardware out, before removing the Hydrocopper 980. But the first Darksiders runs perfectly smooth. It's running great, and I do want to do a playthrough of that. Definitely am going to do a playthrough of it. It's just a great game, but I ran it for 1 hour and 32 minutes, so that's kind of nice. And of course, Audacity is just now getting up to the 20-minute mark audio recorded, so this is probably actually more 17-minute or 16-minute mark in the video, which means I have to speak for quite a bit longer because I'm pretty sure this video is going to be about 20 minutes long because of how much footage there is. There is actually, believe it or not, the footage of the hardware swap is actually about 3 hours long. That's including showing the end result in my computer, though. Other than that, it's actually closer to 2 hours 46 minutes, I think. Maybe 2 hours 50 something. I guess the last 3 clips actually is actually only about 4 or 5 minutes in total. So I guess maybe not exactly 3 hours, but it's pretty goddamn close to 3 hours. I'm just gonna round up. Of course, I did also reinstall Skyrim. I tried reinstalling ENB. I don't know what the hell I did to make it work before, but I can't get ENB to work. I only tried once and I was exhausted at the time, but it's just a pain in the ass. And honestly, with only one graphics card, I'm pretty sure Skyrim uses 2 graphics cards. So with only one graphics card, I'm not actually going to reinstall ENB. I'm still going to be using the texture mods I was using, and I'm still going to be using the foliage mod to make Whiterun have a lot more plant life and everything. But I'm not going to be using ENB because I don't want to drive the frame rate down way too low to actually play it. But there are going to be mods being used on it still, and I have mentioned in it that mods are going to be changing over time in that playthrough. It is a modded playthrough, so obviously I have to change stuff around and remove mods constantly. And I did not remove the links to the ENB mods that I was using when you saw it with ENB and just looking really pretty. So for playthrough returning, I'm probably going to start recording next month. I want to take a little while to calm down from this whole 10-month process of figuring out what the fuck is going on with my computer. And basically, since I explained this, that I've sort of subtly, I guess, explained that, hey, and the hydrocopper was the problem. So basically, here's what happened. Because this is a huge clusterfuck, let me just explain this the best I can. And you might want to write something down to actually try and keep track of it, because it is a clusterfuck, and it is just, holy shit, it is just retarded that it happened at all. Basically, what happened is either a few options here that make sense. Either the last motherboard I had was faulty, then I sent in the 2 graphics cards thinking they may have been faulty, and what I got in return was one faulty Hydrocopper 980 graphics card, or both of the graphics cards I used in the system before I swapped out hardware were faulty, then I got one Hydrocopper 980 in return that was also faulty, or a combination of both the motherboard and graphics cards were faulty, then I got that faulty Hydrocopper 980. Either way, it ended up that I replaced hardware and I still had a faulty graphics card, and that kind of sucks because it means it's possible that I wasted money swapping out my motherboard, my CPU, and my RAM when those were possibly, as one of the 3 options mentioned, those are possibly not faulty at all, though I'm not sure about the motherboard anymore because I spilled some distilled water on it, but in that distilled water was actually corrosion inhibitor. There weren't any sparks or electrical activity going on. It was quite a ways in, so the motherboard was probably completely discharged. Either way, it's got some water under and around the CPU mounting plate or mounting brackets or whatever. So either way, it means there's possibly wasted money trying to narrow this damn problem down, especially sending cards in for replacement too. So, I don't know, this is just retarded. Either way, I'm never getting EVGA again. I will give Nvidia one more try. If it's just EVGA's fault, then I have to blame EVGA. I have to place the blame on who's actually responsible for this issue. I'm also going to avoid Asus motherboards just in case, because their quality, some reason, I mean, back when I built my last computer, their quality of motherboards, they were up 4.5 and 5.5 rating. Now they're down to 3 out of 5. So it's possible that they're just not keeping up with everyone else and the quality difference is being real noticeable, or their quality is actually reduced. But then there's EVGA, and I don't think I should trust EVGA because I even explained to them, hey, this light's actually starting to flicker, and then just said, oh, give me your power supply ratings, and power supply is all stable, it's looking fine. Well, possible just because, the motherboard, which, okay, well, I got a new motherboard now, and I didn't respond to them yet with this or anything. I didn't tell them, hey, I got a new motherboard, and light's actually out now, it's not still flickering. It went out on the last motherboard and just hasn't come back. I was thinking, okay, well, whatever. So it's really is the damn graphics card, and they're just, I don't know. It's just best to avoid them because one of the 3 situations is that, hey, the motherboard is innocent and it was the graphics cards with both EVGA graphics cards, which also means I got lucky to actually get one card that isn't faulty. Even though the superclock, I am pretty damn sure is just the graphics cards here, because if you think about the superclock, when I did the unboxing of the superclock 980, it showed that the power connectors for the fan and the LED were not plugged in completely, and the replacement superclock 980 graphics card that I got had the exact same fucking problem on it. even though I replaced that cooling block and the fans for the water block that I'm using on my card right now, that's not what's in question here, and that's not the problem. That's not what I'm trying to get at. The problem I'm getting at here is that those plugs weren't in all the way, so they could have easily come loose, and your card would just overheat, thermal throttle, and possibly melt or start a fire. And the fact that there's such bad quality assurance that this is something that happens twice in a row and possibly happens to others, because I had at least one person comment on that unboxing that their card also had the same problem with the fan and light not being plugged in completely. I'm seeing a pattern here where they're just not doing stuff properly and they're just not plugging shit in all the way, and that's not something that's really good. So right now I'm actually placing all the blame on EVGA. Anyways, that is the end of this video. Audacity is now almost at 30 minutes. Hopefully I have enough audio recorded for the video here. Basically, I'm going to start recording next month. I'm going to take a break until then. But next month, I'll start recording the rest of my Skyrim playthrough. I'm not sure when it'll be uploaded. I'll let you guys know a week before it's actually releasing. So it'll be on a weekly video when I actually explain when it's actually starting to return. But until then, I guess I'll see you guys on next week's video or on something else. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know with a comment, like, subscribe, and or a share. Go ahead and let me know what you think about the way my computer looks now. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Tell me thoughts. I don't care. Just comment something. I always do read those comments. If I don't really have a response and it's a comment I like, I do click the thumb up to like. I tend to do that more than leaving a comment because I kind of suck at leaving comments. So anyways, just, yeah, go ahead and leave a comment, subscribe, or share. Either thing, it works fine. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next week or on some other video, but until then, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys then. Bye.